Hi, my name is Seth Itzkan. I'm a futurist and a climate activist. As a futurist, I'm interested in trends impacting the future. And as a climate activist, I'm interested in innovations that can help mitigate global warming. Well, about 10 years ago, I started to become interested in the role of biology in helping to sequester atmospheric carbon and mitigate climate change. And I became aware of the potential of grasslands to sequester carbon because grasslands are the largest ecosystem on the planet. They cover about 40% of the surface of the Earth, and they're prodigious stores of atmospheric carbon. And I began to realize that if grasslands could be restored, that could help turn around the climate change crisis. It could certainly be a big part of it. And I've been aware of Savory's work for about 20 years or so. I was first introduced to it in the 1990s, and I was just thinking about in terms of the great herds of buffalo that used to go between Mexico and Canada, and I began to realize how that's part of a system. But I wasn't thinking about climate change back then. I was thinking about it in terms of ecology, and it made perfect sense that if we could replicate the behavior of buffaloes and other herding ruminants, that we could restore grasslands. But it was only, like I said, in about the last 10 years that I began thinking about this from an understanding of climate, because I'm so passionate as a climate activist. And a few years ago, Allan put out a call asking people to come to the Africa Center for Holistic Management in Zimbabwe. And so I went. And so I met Allan Savory in Zimbabwe at the Africa Center. And I said, well, I'll go for 4 weeks. And I ended up staying for 6. And I was completely blown away. And I was very inspired by what I saw and impressed. And it was a real eye-opener for me, and it expanded my thinking about what was possible for restoration of grasslands. And let me say that once you stand in a field of eyeball-high perennial grasses in an area that only a few years before was completely barren, you feel this in your inside. This is extremely real experience, and nobody can tell me it doesn't work because I have stood in the efficacy. Okay, so communities are benefited, let's say, 4 areas. One, it improves the crop production. 2, it improves the hydrology, so the water on the land lasts longer into the dry season. 3, it improves the quality of the livestock and of the protein that they produce. And 4, it provides viable year-round income for the villagers there. So the whole ecological economics of the community is enhanced. It also stems the tide away from agricultural rural areas and into cities. And as a futurist, looking at trends, one of the most important trends, of course, is the growing of urban slums. And if this can help stem that tide, then that's another powerful factor. Consumers can play a huge role by supporting local sustainable agriculture, that preserves healthy open space. So obviously, if you can buy meat products from a fairly local rancher who is managing sustainably and perhaps even restoratively, and is even perhaps doing grass-finished beef as well as grass-raised, but also grass-finished, so at no time do they ever go on a corn diet. That would be helpful if you could do that. Yeah, research is extremely important, and the more research we have, the better we'll be, of course. Particularly the research that I'm interested in is research on ranches that are doing holistic management. And we want to look at the forage production. We want to look at the soil quality, you know, particularly like the soil carbon, but other soil parameters as well. And we also want to look at the economics of the ranch itself. The triple bottom line is the economics, the social factors, and also the environmental quality factors. So all three of those are an important part of the research. Just something to say about the research. A lot of the research that has been done on ranching has, of course, shown that ranching and livestock can be deleterious to landscapes. No one has ever questioned that. There has historically been a misassociation of conventional ranching with holistic management, which is a management philosophy. It isn't just a grazing philosophy. And what I'm hoping will happen in the future is that the proper research will be done, and it's starting to happen, that is actually looking at ranches that are being holistically managed. So it's not just the grazing regimen, but is the management of the grazing regimen itself and the goals of the rancher toward a ecological restoration goal and changing to meet that goal. This is very different than a sort of a rote type of ranching that says, just has a number and you just follow that number, or a study that comes in and arbitrarily picks a paddock and a number of cattle and whatever, and they say, oh, well, this showed that. To really study holistic management, you need to do it in a ranch which is being managed holistically, and I'm hoping to see more of that in the future. Well, I'm so glad you asked this question because, like I said, I am a futurist, and so the compelling vision for me and the reason why I'm so inspired by holistic management is because it helps to provide the vision of restoring grasslands and of greening deserts and of pulling carbon out of the air and really creating a future worth living into. I think it's extremely important because it's an innovation whose time has come. And the holistic view is one that we have to have in order to make it into the next stage of a sustainable future, whatever that means. I don't know exactly, but we do know that just having the reductionist view of everything, of agriculture and of research and of economics and whatever, is killing the planet, it's killing the soil. So we need to learn to manage these things holistically. And that means having all the stakeholders at the table when decisions are made. And so, for example, in agrarian areas, the stakeholders are the people living on the land. They have to be part of that discussion. And so, for me, it's very powerful and very hopeful. I've been a climate activist for like 25 years, and the whole thrust of climate activism predominantly is what we're against. We're against emissions, we're against big business, and it's hard to articulate what we're for. Holistic management allows us to have that articulation. We're for restoring grasslands. We're for taking carbon out of the air. We're for having a future that is not only sustainable but restorative, in which all stakeholders are part of the conversation. That to me is incredibly compelling, and I'm very thankful to the Savory Institute and to Allan Savory and the holistic management concept for enabling that type of vision.